أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين أما بعد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أحفظوا أنسابكم تسلوا أرحامكم. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the next episode in the Sayyid series, where, as you can see from the title, we will be discussing the preservation of the genealogy of the Sayyids and what the history in the first millennium is after the Hijrah in the preservation of this lineage. The hadith I quoted in the beginning of this video was أحفظوا أنسابكم. Preserve your genealogy. Why? Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Tasallu arhamakum. So that you may maintain ties of kinship. This indicates the importance of preserving any genealogy, not just the lineage of the Sayyids. This is because maintaining the genealogy, maintaining a family tree, maintaining a record of your distant and near relatives allows you to perform silat al-raham, which is maintaining the good ties with your relatives, with your family, with your tribe, and with your nation. And this is highlighted beautifully in this prophetic hadith. Someone may ask, the preservation of this science or this Sayyid lineage, what is the history behind this? Is this something just made up? Is this something that, someone just got up in the morning and said, hey, I'm going to write a bunch of names and then everybody is going to, so-and-so is going to connect to this person and so-and-so is going to connect to this person? Is it just the imagination of somebody, or is it an actual legitimate science which has been preserved over the millennium? The preservation of Sayyid genealogy has a very rich history marked by significant scholars who preserved this knowledge. And the first important work on the genealogy of the Sayyids was Kitab Ansab al-Abi Talib, which was written by Sayyid al-Sharif Yahya ibn al-Hasan al-Aqiqi al-Madani. He died in 277 after Hijrah. The book has since been lost. However, there is another book which he wrote about the genealogy of the Sayyids, which was called Al-Mu'aqqabin min Wuldi Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. So those who continued from the descendants of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. It outlines the lineage of the Sayyids and the branches which emerged from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam genealogically. Yahya al-Aqiqi al-Madani al-Alawi, his lineage is as follows. He is Yahya, the son of Al-Hasan, the son of Ja'far al-Hujjah, the son of Ubaidullah al-A'raj, the son of Hussein al-Asghar, the son of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam. This tells you, now you can see how closely he is linked to and related to Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. This shows you that his knowledge should be taken, the knowledge that he is giving in his book, which is present today, it should be taken as a primary source, because one's family, a person of a family knows about the descendants, the brothers, the lineage, and all information pertaining to his great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather, great-great-great-grandfather. This is something, if somebody's preserved their lineage to a minimal level, they should at least be able to tell you this much. And we are speaking about the lineage of Sayyids, which is one of the most protected and preserved lineages in all of history. This work is significant because it documents the Imam Zadas, or the sons of the Imams, until his lifetime. Although before him there were many genealogists in the progeny of Abi Talib alayhi salam, including, and for example, Aqil, who was a genealogist. Aqil was the one who Imam Ali alayhi salam went to in order to consult with him with regards to what eventually became the marriage to al-Banin alayhi salam. But Aqil, obviously and naturally, because he's the direct son of Abu Talib, is not able to tell you the future, nor is he able to tell you except about his brothers. So the first most important work and the most important genealogist after Aqil ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam was this Sayyid Yahya I have mentioned to you. This book of Sayyid Yahya, we mentioned that he passed away in 277 after Hijrah, was passed on by his grandson, Abu Muhammad al-Zaydani, the son of Sayyid Muhammad, the son of the mentioned Yahya. It was passed on by him in Baghdad to two names, and I will tell you a bit more about those names too. They were passed on to Ibn Khadaa and Sheikh al-Sharaf al-Ubaydali. As far as Ibn Khadaa is concerned, Ibn Khadaa was an Egyptian genealogist. He was a Naqib from the lineage of Imam al-Husayni alayhi salam. We will go into what a Naqib is in the next video, inshallah. Ibn Khadaa was one of those who benefited from this book of Sayyid Yahya. He passed away after 361 after Hijrah. And the second person who this book was passed on to was, as I mentioned, Sheikh al-Sharaf al-Ubaydali. Now, even though he is called Sheikh, he was a Sayyid from the lineage of Imam al-Husayni alayhi salam. And he is called Sheikh here because of the fact that he was a teacher. And to what extent he was a teacher, you will learn as we go along in this video. Sheikh al-Sharaf passed away in 437 after Hijrah. And both, now we have demonstrated one line of knowledge being passed down. The second line, now both Ibn Khadaa and Sheikh al-Sharaf also took knowledge from Abu Nasr al-Bukhari. Abu Nasr al-Bukhari was alive in 341 after Hijrah. And even though he was not a Sayyid, he wrote a book called Sir as-Silsilat al-Alawiyya, the secrets of the lineage of the Alawiyya. His intention was not to bother Sayyids or the Shurafa by writing this book or to put them on the spot, but it was to make an effort to protect the genealogy of the Sayyids. Both Ibn Khadaa, who we mentioned earlier, and Sheikh al-Sharaf took from Abu Nasr al-Bukhari. So we have one path of knowledge coming from Sayyid Yahya al-Aqiqi al-Madani, and the second line is coming from Abu Nasr al-Bukhari. So just from this time period, from the time period of Imam Ali alayhi salam down to Sheikh al-Sharaf, we have already covered 397 years approximately. This showcases how, at least for this small period, and we will expand on this period further, that how the preservation of Alid genealogy or the Alawi genealogy, the Sayyid genealogy, was preserved. Another important figure, Abu Ghanaim al-Zaydi. He died in 438 after Hijrah. And he was also a descendant of Imam Ali ibn al-Husayn Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam. Interestingly, the same Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam who everybody deemed to be weak in Karbala and in Ash-Sham, today, the same Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, for him who Imam Hussein alayhi salam said to protect him, for he is the one who will continue the lineage after me, and according to the Shia, will continue the Imamah after me. The same Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam, his descendants are now preserving that very same lineage which came into question in the lands of Karbala. This Abu Ghanaim al-Zaydi wrote a book called Uyun al-Mushtaqin, which is also a book on Sayyid genealogy. And he was also somebody who took knowledge from Sheikh al-Sharaf, who we mentioned earlier. His frequent places where he visited or places he had acquaintance with were Damascus, Khurasan, and Maghrib. Fakhr al-Razi, the famous Shafi'i scholar, who is known for Ilm al-Kalam, wrote many books on various topics, many disciplines and many ulum. However, one of them, even though he himself was not a genealogist, he quoted from Abu Ghanaim al-Zaydi quite frequently in the book which is attributed to him, called Al-Shajrat al-Mubaraka fi Ansab al-Talibiyya. And he passed away in 606 after Hijrah. Fakhr al-Razi, who we've mentioned in his book Al-Shajrat al-Mubaraka, also quoted from Umari al-Nasaba, who we'll get to now, who died in around 460 after Hijrah. So he took knowledge quoted al-Umari al-Nasaba, and this al-Umari al-Nasaba was a descendant of Umar al-Atraf, the son of Imam Ali alayhi salam, hence the suffix after his name of Umari. He authored a book called al-Majdi fi Ansab al-Talibiyin, and also took knowledge from Sheikh al-Sharaf al-Ubaidali. And he was familiar with Basra, Mosul, Syria, and Egypt. So now we are, even though it may get confusing, and inshallah I will add a chart into this video so you can see this more clearly, you can see how people from various regions are coming together and are all linked with each other in the preservation of this lineage over centuries. Another book is Al-Fakhri fi Ansab al-Talibiyin, and it was written by Ismail al-Marwazi al-Azwarqani, who passed away in 614 after Hijrah. And he is a descendant of Muhammad ad-Dibaj, the son of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam. In his book, you will find quotations from Ibn Khadaa, Abu Ghanaim al-Zaydi, al-Umari al-Nasaba, and amongst other names. So now the time period that we've covered, from the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, Imam Ali, until the time of al-Marwazi, is approximately 574 years. This again highlights the periods of preservation and the rigorous preservation over centuries of the Sayyid genealogy. Another important name to mention amongst the important names, I may not be able to cover all of them in this video, is Ibn Inaba, who was known as Jamaluddin Ahmad ibn Inaba, who died in 828 after Hijrah. He wrote many books. For example, Mukhtasar Bani Hashim, which was a very precise and short book on the Banu Hashim and their lineage, Umdat al-Talib al-Kubra, Umdat al-Talib al-Wusta, and Umdat al-Talib al-Sughra. And these were all books focused on the genealogy of the Sayyids and the Shurafa, and also al-Fusul al-Fakhriya, which was written in the Farsi language. He was a descendant of Abdullah al-Mahad, the son of al-Hasan al-Muthanna, the son of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. He also quotes from many of the genealogists I've mentioned earlier, along with his teacher, Tajuddin. An interesting thing is the chain of his ijaza, or the chain of his knowledge, the chain of permission to deal with the matters of Ansab, goes back to the author of Al-Majdi, who we mentioned earlier. So from the time of Imam Ali alayhi salam to Ibn Inaba, approximately 788 years have passed. Once again demonstrating how the Sayyid lineage was preserved over centuries. A notable figure who continued such work was Muhammad ibn Ahmad ibn Umayd ad-Din al-Najafi, who lived in the 9th and 10th century, having passed away in the latter, so the 10th century. He authored a book called Al-Mushajjar al-Kashaf, a significant genealogical work that is considered a great resource for the Sayyids. Notably, he was well acquainted with the works of Ibn Inaba, who we have mentioned. And he wrote a manuscript of Umdat al-Talib, which was based upon the actual handwriting of the original author Ibn Inaba, and had his own copy of that manuscript. This demonstrates that he understood the contents of that book very well, that manuscript, and he was somebody, amongst others, who inherited this knowledge and passed it on further. He belonged to the lineage of Imam al-Husayni alayhi salam. His work alongside the works of others, and now we can go even further. We've reached the 10th century AD. I can go further. I can mention Dhamin ibn Shadqan and his work. He lived in the 10th or 11th century. The 11th century. I can also mention Sayyid Ja'far al-A'raji, who with his own chain of permission wrote many books such as Al-Asas fi Ansab al-Nas and Manahil al-Darab fi Ansab al-Arab. Once again, I will be showing you towards the end of this video a chart which will help you understand everything that I've just said, which will demonstrate in some way or another whether how these ulama of ilm al-Ansab took knowledge from each other, whether it was directly as pupils or whether they took it from the books. We will demonstrate it clearly so that you can see how this knowledge was passed down. We can go further, bring it until today, but I hope that covering at least this millennium from the Hijrah up to the previous genealogists that we mentioned, demonstrates our point that the Sayyid genealogy is one of the most preserved and honored genealogies out of all the genealogies of the world. In the next episode, we will be discussing the roles of the Nuqaba or the Naqibs, who they were, what their titles were, and how they gathered the information that they did in these books. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.